Stop saying video games aren't real. My dad used to say something that still really grinds my gears. Mostly when I was 8 through 12, he'd say, "Do something real. Video games aren't real." He spoke it like it was gospel truth. And I'd stand there holding the controller in hand like it was proof enough. But Dad, video games are real. Here's the first point. They exist. They were created. By definition, they are a real part of reality. You can see them, you can hear them, touch the controller, slot the cartridge or disc, press start, and play from the first menu to the last mission. They were made by people, with mathematics, logic, sound, imagination, and precision. They are designed. They dynamically respond. So how can something that exists, responds, and affects you on a deep enough level not be considered real? What he meant, because I knew exactly what he meant, was that the world inside the game didn't match the world outside the game. The creatures were strange. The rules were foreign. Maybe there were floating platforms, impossible jumps, power-ups that bent physics, villains who breathed fire or toyed with time. Gravity didn't behave exactly as it does here. Landscapes didn't follow Earth's geology or geography. The logic was different, but it was logic. These weren't random shapes drifting aimlessly. They were internally consistent systems, crafted with color, simulated space, algorithms, patterns, rhythm, precision, and structure. A different rulebook doesn't make a world less legitimate. Different in content, equally real in structure. I saw that long before anyone handed me the vocabulary for it. It wasn't just getting lost in entertainment or some drooling amusement. It was architecture. Mental, emotional, symbolic. Every game world I entered wasn't just sound and pixels on a screen to me. It was a constructed experience bound by rules, cause and effect, design, and purpose. Each one was a self-contained laboratory for exploring possibility and meaning. A sandbox for the soul. And once you realize that, you start to ask, what is a world, if not a small network of laws and properties you can experience intimately from the inside? Think about it. What makes the real world real? Physics? Interaction? Causation? Consequences? Memory? Persistence? The ability to make choices that matter? Games have all of these. They're just running on different hardware. Back in 2001 and 2002, 6 turning 7 and 7 turning 8, I spent hours after school playing my NES Nintendo Entertainment System and also my Sega Genesis. Mario, Sonic, Pitfall, Mrs. Pac-Man, Zelda, Mega Man, Contra, Castlevania, Streets of Rage. There was a local shop called Trade-A-Game. Aisles of plastic cases holding entire universes, each waiting to unfold. I eventually traded my NES with about 90 games, and my Genesis with nearly 60 games, for a gray PlayStation, 1 controller, and 4 discs. Gex, Duke Nukem Time to Kill, Duke Nukem Land of the Babes, and a 4th game I can't quite pin down, maybe either Spider-Man, Tomb Raider, or Mega Man 8. In those days, into the early 2000s, from about 2000 to about 2009, cartridge games were considered old junk and practically being given away. Most thrift stores, pawn shops, or secondhand stores would sell NES carts for 25 or 50 cents a pop. The industry was sprinting headfirst towards 3D, and overnight, a lot of 2D felt ancient. The PlayStation with its glorious new polygons was mine to keep. Before I had my own, I watched my uncles, Steven and Chris, play for hours on their own PlayStation systems in '98 and '99. I was mesmerized, not just by graphics, but atmosphere, the way light played on surfaces, the casting of shadows, the depth of hallways and corridors, the tension around every corner, the weight and momentum of characters no longer sliding across flat backdrops. Then I borrowed a copy of Metal Gear Solid. I played it in the dark over a couple nights on the weekend. It took a little over 20 hours. It was one of the most profound media experiences I'd had as a kid at that point, second only to seeing 2 of the Matrix movies, including seeing The Matrix Revolutions in theaters with my uncles. Those 2 moments bent the arc of my thinking, towards political narrative, socioeconomic narrative, simulation theory, the multiverse. And here's the thing, even as an 8-year-old boy, I understood it. At the time, not every single reference, not every political nuance, but I understood the emotion, the betrayals, the weight of Snake's or Neo's choices, the weight and pressure of nuclear holocaust, torture, or annihilation if mission failed. The games and movies had taught me how to read between the lines of broader narrative. Then at one point I caught myself staring at Snake's pixelated polygon face and thinking, I bet one day video games are going to look just like real life. I wasn't guessing. I was seeing it ahead of time. It was clear that the new 3D we were just newly witnessing would only get bigger and better with time. The trajectory was apparent if you were paying close attention. Of course, it seems obvious in retrospect. Each generation wasn't just adding more polygons, it was adding more presence, more immersion, more real. When I asked my uncle, Chris, he told me, it'll happen in 30, maybe 40 years for sure. Graphics will just keep getting better and better until it becomes nearly impossible to make computer circuits any smaller. But we're still pretty far from that now. It didn't seem like it would take forever anymore. It felt like just a few more iterations, a few more leaps in hardware, a few more cycles of Moore's Law, and we'd get there. Maybe we're still not quite there even today, but the leap was undeniable. Games weren't just for kids anymore. They were evolving into simulated masterpieces, crafted realities with depth, design, and emotional texture. They began to feel like places to visit, not just fun pastimes. And he was right. But it quickly started to feel like it wouldn't even take that long. Because by 2004, things got real for me, and for so many others. A first glimpse into what could be. Because that's when GTA San Andreas dropped, Rockstar's 3rd 3D installment in about 3 years, and for the first time, I wasn't just quote-unquote playing a level or following a mission. I was freely roaming a massive world, a living, breathing open world where I could go anywhere, do anything, wreak terrific chaos, or just ride a BMX through the suburbs on your way to the gym. I could stop at a red light just because I felt like it. I could follow traffic laws in a game literally designed for breaking them. The choice was all mine, and somehow that made it matter. Heck, you could even pull up to a gas station and go inside just to spend an hour and a half playing that freaking Bumblebee arcade game. I still can't get that soundtrack out of my head. You know the one. There was freedom. Cities, streets, suburbs, forests, deserts, oceans. There was autonomy. There was fun. But also something deeper, a glimpse into a kind of simulated life. For the first time, I wasn't just controlling a character. I was inhabiting a space that felt bigger than my actions within it. And I knew something had changed, truly, fundamentally. It was the first time I remember stopping mid-game and putting down my controller, not because I was bored, but because I was in awe. Not of the graphics alone, but of the feeling that this world held mass, and weight, and memory, and momentum. It had weather patterns, day and night cycles, NPCs with routines that continued whether I was watching or not. Cars sank with springy weight. Gravity made them roll down hills. This wasn't just a game world, it was a world that happened to be a game. I remember watching pedestrians and drivers going about their day. As a kid, I imagined the entire city was bustling around me. Maybe the entire state of San Andreas was alive and kicking. Then my uncle explained that they were all just on randomly generated routines. That the game only rendered what we could see. It wasn't thinking about the cars or NPCs 6 to 12 blocks away. But that revelation didn't really diminish the experience for me. In a huge way, it actually enhanced it. These developers had created the nearly perfect illusion of a living world so convincingly that my brain had filled in the gaps automatically. They had built something that felt more complete than it actually was. Isn't that exactly what great art does? But deep down, I was beginning to realize that simulated experience is still valid experience. And my uncle Chris, he told me something back over a dozen years ago that stuck with me. He said, just because it's in a game doesn't mean the feelings aren't real. Morality doesn't turn off just because you're holding a controller. He explained it like this. Imagine you're building something beautiful in Minecraft. A temple, a town, a treehouse, a whole world you spent days on, maybe weeks, maybe months. Placing each block with intention, stepping back to admire your progress, dreaming about additions and improvements. And then someone logs in and griefs it, sets it on fire, blows it up, deletes it all. Now shift the scene. Imagine instead you're in a public library, building that same structure out of Legos. You've got it just how you want it. Then someone walks up and kicks it into pieces, on purpose. Would that not be cruel? Wouldn't that be a violation of effort, of space, of trust? Just because the bricks are digital doesn't mean the loss is imaginary. Griefing is real. The construction is real. The intention is real. Because your time is real. Your effort is real. Your attention and your creativity and your joy are all real. Your investment of self into that digital space, that's as real as any other form of human expression. The medium changes, sure. The meaning doesn't. And this cuts both ways. If digital destruction can cause real pain, real anguish, then digital creation can provide real satisfaction. If virtual loss can trigger genuine grief, then virtual achievement can spark authentic pride. The emotional circuitry doesn't distinguish between pixels or atoms. It responds to meaning, investment, and consequence. And this doesn't just apply to multiplayer games. Even in a single player, how you choose to act reflects something. If you choose to play a game and constantly choose to act like a psychopath, slaughtering civilians, causing chaos for no reason, that's still your decision, and your brain is still learning from it. It doesn't mean games automatically make you bad, but they do entrain behavior. They condition emotional habits, especially your inner thought life. They reward certain rhythms of response. They teach you what it feels like to make certain choices without real-world consequences. But the practice of choosing is still real. And if you spend hours reinforcing reckless anger or cruelty, whether real or simulated, your nervous system starts to build a preference for it. Games don't just shape what you do in the game. They shape how you feel about what you do. They're simulators for the soul, training grounds for moral reflexes and emotional responses. Years later, Elon Musk popularized Nick Bostrom's big point.
I think particularly when you see the advancement of something like video games, like say 40 years ago, you had video games, the most advanced video game would be like Pong, where you had like two rectangles and a dot. You're like batting it back and forth.
I played it.
Oh yeah, like me too, exactly. I played
old.
Pong. Exactly, it sort of dates you a little bit. But yeah, we both played the same game. And that was like, wow, that was a pretty fun game at the time. But now you can see a video game that's photorealistic, almost photorealistic, and millions of people playing simultaneously. And you see where things are going with virtual reality. and augmented reality. And if you extrapolate that out into the future with any rate of progress at all, like even 0.1% or something like that a year, then eventually those games will be indistinguishable from reality. They'll be so realistic, you will not be able to tell the difference between that game and the reality as we know it. And then it seems like, well, how do we know that that didn't happen in the past and that we're not in one of those games ourselves?
Interesting. Interesting.
If simulations and virtual worlds keep improving and stacking, the odds that we're in a classical base reality get very tiny. I'd been thinking that since I was little. After seeing The Matrix at 5, I told myself, we do live in the Matrix, but it was created by God. If a system follows rules, generates outcomes, and produces emotion, it's a form of reality. Coded doesn't mean counterfeit. Digital doesn't mean delusional. It means designed. And the closer our simulations get to life, the harder that line becomes to draw. I've sat on my couch wearing a headset, sitting at the same time on another couch in a virtual apartment, or eating a real cheeseburger while meeting friends in a virtual fast food joint. And it felt real. Not as a trick of the brain, but as a part of my actual life. 2 couches, 2 tables, 2 realities. Both experienced, both remembered, both etched into memory. Now imagine a near future where the line between layers feels blurred but friendly. You're in a virtual apartment. You tap a soft glow on the wall. A smart bulb at home blooms to life. You touch a little coffee icon above the counter, and a real machine in your kitchen answers with a quiet hiss. You nudge a couch in a digital twin of your living room, and an easy AR guide helps you slide the actual one into the perfect spot. You cue a playlist on a virtual shelf, and your real speakers pick up the song. You're in a virtual world. A note suddenly appears. 2 packages have arrived. Just as the garage eases open, the thermostat warms the room before you step in. The robot vacuum starts a light sweep. The sprinkler defers watering because a rain indication is sitting over your block. Your porch camera pings a friendly "who's there" overlay, and you wave to the courier through a tiny window in your view. This isn't escape, this is convergence and harmony. The virtual becomes a calm control surface for the physical, a polite handshake where simple gestures become comforting outcomes and flow back as warmth, color, and mood. In that gentle loop of intention to touch to response to feeling, the digital isn't trying to replace reality, it's helping it sing. Yes, people say games can be addictive or isolating. Anything can be, if misused. Books, food, religion. The medium isn't necessarily the problem. It's more about the relationship. This isn't about mere escapism. It's about convergence. The digital world isn't fake. It's layered, responsive, expanding. Pixel by pixel, node by node, the virtual grows more physical. The symbolic becomes more systemic, and reality keeps unfolding layer at a time. This convergence isn't just about systems. It's about souls connecting through them. These constructed universes don't exist in isolation. They weave people together. Think of late-night raids in World of Warcraft, where strangers become comrades over a shared goal, their voices crackling through old headsets, coordinating moves with a precision that feels like an old dance. Or the quiet moments in Animal Crossing, where you visit a friend's island, trade a rare fish, and leave a note on their virtual bulletin board. These aren't just games, they're digital neighborhoods and social tapestries, stitching lives across vast distances, countries, and continents. I've laughed with someone states away while building a Minecraft castle. I've felt victory with an old friend as we finished a heist together in GTA 5. These connections aren't less real because they're just digital. They carry weight, trust, betrayal, joy, loss. The friendships I've forged in these spaces, the rivalries, the shared triumphs, they ripple into my real life, shaping my calendar, my conversations, my memories. A digital campfire is still a campfire if you are warm with those around you. If anything, these worlds expand the many ways in which we can belong, offering new threads to the human tapestry of meaning and culture, binding us through shared purpose, creativity, and presence. So let's talk about what we really mean when we say something is real. Real is what affects you. We often confuse real with natural, organic, grabbable, graspable, or tangible. Reality doesn't care whether something was born or built. It cares whether it functions, whether it forms, whether it impacts. If something can shape your thoughts, move your emotions, alter choices, shift your schedule, make you feel joy or dread or courage, if it can affect friendships, career, passions, income, or identity, then it's real. Reality isn't defined by where something happens. It's defined by what it does. It's like Morpheus says in The Matrix, what is real?
How do you define real? If you're talking about what you can feel, what you can smell, what you can taste and see, then real is simply electrical signals interpreted by your brain.
A virtual space that influences your real emotions, your real time, your real effort, energy, brain power, your real money, your real relationships, is not simply some illusion. It's an extension of your life. It's a part of your current reality's architecture. At some point, the question isn't, is this real? The question becomes, how deeply has this been implemented into my experience? Because everything is real, to the degree that it lives inside the system of your life. What is the scope or boundary? That's why we need to stop calling them video games. That term is outdated, a placeholder from a time when these systems were small, pixelated, and mostly aimed at kids. But they've outgrown the term. We're not just playing games anymore. We're entering constructed universes, simulated realities, carefully contrived landscapes, virtual dimensions with their own physics, their own laws, their own consequences and continuities. And very soon, they'll have their own inhabitants. Not just hard-coded behaviors or reflexive scripts, but synthetic, dynamic minds. Simulated beings capable of independent thought, memory, decision, preference, maybe even emotion and wonder. Fully thinking, adapting, evolving intelligences living inside these worlds. We will soon realize that AI minds can live and thrive within virtual environments. Soon it will be easier and more cost-effective to train and simulate AI bodies with digital 3D CGI and augmented holograms than it would be to have actual robotic chassis taking up space and walking around everywhere. Instead, we will most likely summon 3D AI assistants to walk and talk in public next to us through shared AI glasses. At that point, these are no longer entertainment systems, they are ecosystems. They are digital civilizations, and with interoperability, they gain the ability to witness each other's worlds, ours and theirs. They are not illusions. They are breathing, living places, with presence, with history, with consequence. And when that happens, if it hasn't started already, you'll see, we're not building games anymore. We're building new layers of reality. When something deeply touches many layers, supports and upholds other layers, leaves lasting traces, keeps on going, and keeps asking you to choose, the virtual versus real debate softens a lot. If it reliably brightens your day, organizes your week, strengthens your ties, or greatly reshapes your habits, it isn't pretend. It's part of your life's architecture. And within that architecture, games don't just challenge us, they teach us how to fall and rise again. Every game over screen is a lesson in persistence. Every boss fight is a masterclass in adaptation. I remember facing Dark Souls for the first time, dying over and over to a skeleton I swore was unbeatable, but each death taught me something. Watch the swing, time the dodge, manage the stamina. Hours later, when I finally felled that enemy, it wasn't just a win, it was a transformation. I'd learned patience, strategy, grit. These lessons don't stay in the game. They seep into life, into the way I tackle a tough project, face a rejection, or navigate a setback. Games don't just simulate worlds, they simulate struggle, and through that struggle they build resilience. They hand you a mirror to your own capacity to endure, adapt, and overcome. That's not pretend. It's a deep preparation, practice. It's a kind of wisdom, coded into every checkpoint, every retry, and every hard-won victory. That's why we should consider the idea of retiring the phrase video games as if they were toys. We're not just playing games anymore. We're entering constructed universes, simulated realities, virtual dimensions with their own physics, laws, consequences, and continuities. As they deepen, these are no longer mere entertainment systems, they're ecosystems, digital civilizations, not illusions, places with presence, history, and consequence. And I believe these worlds exist across at least 3 different planes: the realm of thought and dreams, the realm of computation and code, and the realm of the multiverse. If something can be imagined, it exists in thought. If it can be programmed, it exists in code. If it can be coherently conceived, somewhere in the multiverse it stands. Where these all overlap, a new form of reality is born. That intersection is where digital realities take root. Not fiction, not hallucination, real, in a deep metaphysical sense. So stop saying video games aren't real. If they shape your thoughts, change your behavior, influence your joy, your story, your memory, your imagination, your belief, then they've already crossed that threshold. They're not just real, they're a part of what reality is becoming. More than that, they're a part of how we grow. Games don't just give us spaces to explore, they give us stories to live, archetypes, journeys. They place us inside decisions that shape who we are, inside the game and outside of it. They hand us control and say, here, choose the path, bear the consequence, find the meaning. Games let us rehearse courage, feel grief, practice strategy, endure failure, taste redemption, learn patience, timing, chaos, peace. They don't just entertain, they train. They shape our thoughtscapes, how we think, reflect, respond. They sculpt our moral compasses through empathy, struggle, consequence. They expand our conceptual vocabulary, giving language to things we couldn't quite say before. A good game is more than fun. It's a symbolic transmission. It's a concentrated, interactive myth. It teaches, it guides, it reveals. Give millions access to these stories, let them live within a parable, and challenge and transformation. You're not just giving them a game, you're giving them the next chapter of human storytelling. And that's what this is. That's what it always was. Whether you're running through a field of light, solving puzzles in silence, building cities from scratch, or facing the gods in pixelated glory, you're not just playing, you're remembering who you are and shaping who you will become. So here's a final reflection. So when I say video games are real, I'm not just defending a childhood pastime. I'm pointing to a truth about what reality is, a tapestry of experiences, digital, physical, emotional, that shape who we are and how we connect. From the pixelated corridors of Metal Gear Solid to the boundless horizons of GTA San Andreas. From the friendships forged in virtual campfires to the resilience carved through countless defeats. These worlds aren't just real, they're vital. They're where we practice being human, where we dream new possibilities, where we build and break and rebuild again. Because at their highest potential, games don't pull you away from reality, they point you deeper into it. They speak in metaphors, they train the soul in symbols. They remind us again and again that choice matters, that consequence is real, and that wonder is sacred. Reality, digital or physical, imagined or embodied, isn't a static box we live in. It's a space we shape, individually and together. So stop saying video games aren't real. They are real. They are powerful. They are an integral part of the future of what it means to be human. And ultimately, they were always meant to be.